Welcome, everybody, to the Mindset Mentor podcast. I'm your host, Rob Dial. If you have not yet done so, hit that subscribe button so you never miss another podcast episode. And today's a special day. I'm joined by my good friend, Lewis Howes here, who has an incredible new book that's out. And it's called The Greatness Mindset, which works perfectly for what we do here, everybody. And so the first thing I want to dive into with you, Lewis, is I literally just finished my book last week. And it is, let's put it the real way. It's a bitch to write a book, right? Like it's a lot, especially when you have a business. I have a business. You have a podcast. I have a podcast. To put a book in there as well is a big thing. And this is your third book. So the first one was The School of Greatness. The second one was The Mask of Masculinity. And this one, The Greatness Mindset. Why now? Like what's with things that are going on in your life? Why is now this book is the thing that needed to come out of you?
Man, it's the thing I wish I had 10, 20, 30 years ago when I was struggling and stuck at different seasons and stages of my life, whether it be in relationship, pain and breakups, or struggling in business partnerships. I wish I had a clear path with personal examples, scientific studies and research backing exactly what to do when you feel stuck, when you feel like unsure, uncertain, like you're doubting yourself, you're not 100% clear on the next step. And so for me, I wanted to create the book that I need and have needed at different times when I was experiencing the most pain.
Yeah.
My good friend Rory Vaden says you're perfectly positioned to help the person you once were. And so my goal was, from all the different challenges and pain and adversity that I was facing in different areas, and the lessons I was learning from overcoming them and now being in a peaceful place, I want to give people the same type of prescription that could support them. And as you know, a lot of people are struggling out there dealing with just overwhelm, anxiety, stress, depression, and in my opinion, a lot of self-doubt. All those things cause us to doubt ourselves. And I believe self-doubt's the killer of dreams. It's the thing that holds us back from having clarity and flow. And in order to create something beautiful or great, I believe you've got to be willing to get into flow more frequently. And I think you might have it at periods of time, but if you can have it more abundantly, this flow energy, this peaceful state inside of you, then I think you can create from a stage of manifesting and alchemizing any idea you want into the world.
Yeah, there's one thing I think I love that was in the book when you bring up self-doubt. I think it's called the self-doubt diagram that's inside the book. Take me through that, because here's the thing. We both work a lot with business owners, and the main thing that holds a business owner back is the business owner's own mindset and their self-doubt. But even if you're not a business owner, we all have tons of self-doubts that pop up every single day. And so when you say that self-doubt's one of the biggest things that holds people back, what's kind of the flow that you take people through of recognizing their self-doubt and then working through it as well?
Man, well, there's three fears that cause us to doubt ourselves. And when I've gone around and spoken in big audiences, I'll have people raise their hand just to get an idea. The fear of failure, the fear of success, and the fear of judgment, essentially other people's opinions of you, whether it be to your face or behind your back. And I always wanted to be successful. And as an athlete, I learned from great coaches growing up that in order to succeed, you must fail. You must go through making mistakes. You must go through losing games so you can learn what worked, what didn't work, and how to improve. And so dropping a ball or missing a shot was never the end of the world. I didn't like it. I never wanted to drop a ball or miss a shot, but it wasn't like the end of the world. It was always like, okay, this is information. This is feedback. It's telling me what's not working and how I can just adjust to make it work better the next time, to set myself up for success. So failure was something, again, I didn't enjoy, but I embraced taking action knowing that I would fail. And as you know, Rob, you coach a lot of people, a lot of 6- and 7-figure entrepreneurs are part of your program. You know that they all have these big ideas. I want to write a book. I want to launch a podcast. I want to do a YouTube show. I want to put myself out there on social media. I want to start a new business or a side hustle or whatever it might be that they're interested in. And they'll be thinking about it for a month, 3 months, 6 months, a year, sometimes years. People will have this, I've been wanting to write a book for years, but I'm just afraid to fail. You hear this conversation that people have this idea in their mind, this conversation that they're talking about, but they're not willing to act because there's one fear that's holding them back, that fear of failure. Again, for guys like me and you, growing up playing sports, I think we weren't afraid to at least take action and have our face smashed in the ground, because we're like, oh, we'll just get back up, and it's going to hurt. But we know that's part of the process of accomplishing goals or achieving success. So for me, fear of failure wasn't the thing, but it is for most people. Their fear of failure is a big thing that holds them back and causes them to doubt themselves. The second one, the fear of success, which I didn't really understand as well, because I had these dreams and goals to be successful that I was like, this is what I'm going after. It's what I want. But I don't know if you experienced this, Rob. When I started to go beyond my high school into college dreams, go beyond my college sports dreams into professional football, and then playing USA handball with the USA team, with team handball, and then go on and launch my own business and start to make more money than peers that I knew, or friends that I grew up with, I started to realize that people in my friend circle or communities weren't actually as supportive as I thought they would be. Some of them were. They were there for me the whole way. But others started to, not like that. Or they started to ask me for money, or started to ask me for things in ways that I didn't feel like were authentic. So there is this documentary called The Weight of Gold, which is about Olympic gold medalists who, within 6 months or a year after they win the gold medal, go through extreme depression. Some of them commit suicide because of the pressure of success. And so this is a big fear and concern for a lot of people. What if my friends and family don't accept me? What if they want more from me than I'm capable of giving? What if I feel like I'm going to get taken advantage of? What if I succeed and now I have this pressure and I can't keep up the success? It took so much to get here. What happens if I fail after that? So this kind of fear of the things tied around success holds a lot of people back as well. If you ask people, are any of you afraid of success? Usually half the room raises their hand. For me, I learned that in the process, and I didn't like the things I was dealing with, from people asking for things or people reaching out after 10 years now that they see me accomplishing stuff and being like, are they really a friend, or are they just asking for something? So you've got to learn how to manage people in a different way when you succeed. But I was still driven by results and my goals. So that wasn't a fear of taking action, where it's a fear to take action for a lot of people. The third fear, the third cause of self-doubt, was my biggest kryptonite, which was the fear of judgment. I was so worried and concerned about what other people thought about me to my face or behind my back for many, many, many years. And it caused me to have, I would still take action. I'd still be willing to fail and hope to succeed, but I was always concerned what people were saying. I always wanted to please people. And it took a lot of energy away from my flow and my peace, because I was concerned about a negative comment online, a bad review on a book, someone saying something nasty on social media. And that would, all my attention would go to that, as opposed to the millions of people saying positive things. And so it was that fear of judgment which held me back. And at the core of each one of these fears, failure, success, or judgment, is a belief that we all have in one way, shape, or form. And you talk about this a lot on your podcast, which I love. And the belief is, I am not enough. At the center, the root of each one of these fears is, I'm not enough. If I fail, I'm not going to be enough, or I'm not good enough, talented enough, smart enough, wealthy enough, beautiful enough, whatever it is. Succeed, I'll never feel enough. And if people judging me, it's because I'm not enough.
I want to dive into this because it's funny, because the fear of failure doesn't scare me. The fear of success doesn't scare me. Fear of judgment used to scare me. So I was in the same boat as you. But it's interesting because you talk about the fear of failure, which I see as if I were to guess, probably the one that holds people back the most. But it's so funny because what you said is so true. Like, I play basketball, you played football, and it was like, do you know how many times we screwed up over and over and over? And I truly believe when I have children, they have to play some sport, because it ingrains in you just to be okay. Like, when someone joins my program, literally we call the first month, fuck it up and figure it out. Because it's like, just be okay messing everything up that you can mess up. The fear of success, what's interesting is I haven't had people ask me for money, but the one thing that I have had is a lot of people ask for a lot of time. And that's really hard. I don't know if you've noticed that, where it's just like, people want time. They want I literally got a text message this morning. Hey, I'm thinking about starting a business. Can you go do lunch this week? And I'm like, dude, I can't do lunch for the next month. Like, so there's that aspect of it. But as far as the judgment side, I definitely used to have that before I got into sales. And I was afraid of what people would think about me all the time. And I was afraid if they would like me. And I think it comes back to a tribal feeling of like, we can't get kicked out of the tribe. If we're kicked out of the tribe, we're going to die in some sort of way. And so you talk about the part of it is creating this mission, this meaningful mission for your life. And I love it because it comes down to the simple fact of, is what I'm doing right now getting me closer to or further from my goals? And I always think that all of the time. And with you, you probably think that all the time as well, because now that you have grown in popularity, you also have to say like, okay, there's this opportunity that's here, but is this lining up with my meaningful mission that I'm trying to actually build in my life? And so with people who are out there where they're like, yeah, I'm either afraid of fear or success or judgment, or shit, I'm afraid of all three of them. How do I develop a meaningful mission in my life to actually decide if the fear of failure, success, and judgment matter at all? If this is my life path and this is what it is that I'm passionate about doing, this is what I'm going to do. How do you develop a meaningful mission around your life?
Well, two things. First, you got to learn to accept and love yourself for where you're at and all the things that you're ashamed of from your past. Because if you're still living in shame, guilt, insecurity, or not forgiving yourself for these things, then there's going to be something inside of you that says, I'm not enough, that says, I messed up, or I'm still not good enough, or I can't believe I made this mistake. You're still going to be a self-critic as opposed to a positive self-coach. And so we've got to learn to be able to instill belief in ourselves when we normally doubt ourselves. That's one thing. So we've got to be constantly on a healing journey of, okay, I'm not proud of these things I did, or I'm not proud of this, or I'm shameful about this thing. And it doesn't mean you have to share it with the world, but you've got to be willing to mend it within you and whatever process that works for you. And I've done many different processes over the last 10 years that have supported my healing journey. That's, I believe, is key because, as you know, Rob, there's a difference between pursuing goals and dreams. And I'm sure at some point in your life, and a lot of people watching and listening, they've accomplished something and still didn't feel like they were good enough. For me, I've accomplished a lot of sports goals and business goals. And literally 20 minutes afterwards, I was like beating myself up. Oh, I could have done more. I should have done it faster. Why didn't I do it in a different way? What's wrong with me? It was like going back to the self-critic as opposed to actually celebrating everything I've done to get me to this moment in my life. So having a process of the healing journey and awareness of how to make meaning and mend those memories is key. It's something I cover in the book on how to do that. But then developing the meaningful mission, I think people have to understand that there's a difference between accomplishing goals and dreams and being of service. And just saying I want to be successful is selfish thinking. It's about, these are my goals, these are my dreams, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's exciting. That's how I've lived a lot of my life. But I never felt like they were good enough when I would accomplish them. So I just wanted to shift the paradigm. Instead of wanting to accomplish my goals and dreams, a meaningful mission is more about greatness. Goals and dreams by itself is about success. But if you want to be great, you've got to learn about service. And a meaningful mission includes the impact of people around you. This doesn't need to be changing the world in some grand thing, but it includes your goals and dreams with serving other people in your community, your family, your friends, or your platform around you, and making it a win-win experience where I don't win unless others win around me. And I think that's the difference between success and greatness. Success is more selfish. Greatness is more service mindset. And you develop that service mindset in the process of scripting, designing, and creating a meaningful mission. And I would encourage everyone listening and watching to ask yourself if you can write down in one sentence right now what your meaningful mission is in life. It could be life or business or career. I'm very clear on mine. It's to serve and impact 100 million lives weekly to help them improve the quality of their life. That's it. And we do that through different mechanisms, but it's clear on what my meaningful mission is. It's to serve and impact 100 million lives weekly to help them improve the quality of their life. It's measurable, it's clear, it's something that is for me exciting. It gets me excited every day to wake up because it's something I'm reaching for, and I have to become someone different every day to get there. And I have to evolve and grow and transform consistently to go beyond my capacity. And so for me, it's clear, it's definable, and it includes other people as well. It's not just, I want to make $1 million so I can buy my dream home. Sure, that can be a result, part of the process in the meaningful mission. Yes, I can have personal goals that I want to accomplish along the way, accolades, all that stuff, follower growth, it's all good. Money in the bank, great. But I think if you're only saying, here are my top 3 goals for the year, and they're focused on me, I feel like we're missing a big opportunity to create greatness over success.
I love that you put greatness on one side and success on the other side, because we both have mutual friends that are extremely successful, and you get to a point where you're like, well, I kind of already made money. Like, what the hell do I do now? Like, it's not fun. It doesn't drive you anymore. Like I always say, like the first 32 years of my life, it was like, how can I make $1 million? How can I be successful? And then when you get to a point, whatever someone's mountain is that they want to climb, you're like, well, what the hell do I do now? Like, what is there to do? And at that point is usually when people do expand themselves to think, all right, well, let me think about people outside of me. And it's funny because for you and me, it's like someone might be listening and be like, well, Lewis has a podcast and he's impacting people, and Rob has a podcast and he's impacting people. But, I sell widgets at my company. So how the hell do I get a meaningful mission out of it and serve others? And we have 2 good friends, mutual friends that are come pop first thing into my mind. And we have Joel Marion and Josh Bozzoni, who both of them had a supplement.
I was just thinking of them as you were saying.
Were you thinking of them? So it's like they have a supplement company.
I was just thinking of that.
They had a supplement company, right? They sold it for a few $100 million. But you can look at it and say, okay, they were selling supplements. Sure, maybe they're helping people in some way. But what happened was then they decided we're going to try to be more service, like do service for others. And so they're like, we're going to do Make-A-Wish. And so with a percentage of how much money comes in, we're going to do Make-A-Wish Foundation. Then they're like, hey, we could do? We could actually add it at the checkout where people can donate and add it to their bill. And then we could just donate that on top of it. And they said that they had more sales, they had more success. And instead of being like, all right, well, I'm worth $50 million now, I got to try to be worth 10 million more. It was like, hey, how can we get more people to donate to Make-A-Wish? How can we bring in more revenue so that we can donate even more to Make-A-Wish Foundation? And so I love that. I love that we're both thinking of the same people too, that they're a good example of somebody who they're in a different company and they're selling a product, but they were able to take their company and their product and turn it into being service-based as well.
I think anytime you create meaning beyond your own success, the business can do a lot better in the long run too. Another example, my friend Tim Sykes, he's been doing for a long time, penny stock trading himself. And he's made millions just trading himself. And then he teaches other people how to do it. And for, 10 years, he just kept making more and more money. But he wasn't fully fulfilled until about, 5 years ago, where he started to get involved in charity. I took him on a charity trip to Guatemala to build a school for an organization called Pencils of Promise. He was so moved by how his, a little bit of money for him could change hundreds of kids' lives who had no school, who had no building and no classroom in schooling. That now I think he's built like hundreds of schools around the world. He created his own charity, Karmagawa, that he is now just like, all my profits of my personal training go into this. We give a percentage to every sale towards service, towards the mission. And he's like, I'm more fueled to create because I know it's going to places that matter as well. So he wins and other people win. There is a meaningful mission behind it, more than just, I'm going to get $3 million this year, or $5 million in sales, or $10 million in sales. Okay, but then what? You bought the home, you bought the car, like you said, then people say, well, now what? And I think start with the now what at the beginning when you're launching something new, so you don't have to get to that place, well, now what? And so I think when you develop and craft a meaningful mission from the beginning, that is powerful. And it doesn't mean everything you're going to be working on in your career or your business you're going to love. You might be in a position where you're like, well, I can't just scrap this whole business that I don't care about. But there's a process that I talk about in the Greatest Mindset, which is figuring out the 3 Ps for yourself: the passion, your power, and the problem you want to solve. And when you can figure out your talents and unique interests that you could align to and that excites you, either in a business you're already working on or something else you're working on, you can be a part of a team that excites you, where you use and develop your talents and interests. That's step one. When you can figure out what your power is, this is really like your unique assets that you could develop, and also where you fall short on your power. So what your greatest fears are, go all in on those fears to overcome them so they become powerful assets for you. Then you can use those two things to figure out, what's the problem I want to solve? What's the thing I want to support? How do I want to be of service? And when you can marry all three of them with your meaningful mission and get clear on that, it's going to be powerful. Now, listen, when I was starting out, my meaningful mission was, how do I make enough money to get off my sister's couch?
Yeah.
It was not, I couldn't think beyond getting out of scarcity. So it was, but it also doesn't mean that I can't be kind, generous, focused on being curious with other people, which I was. I asked a lot of questions when I was on my sister's couch. I showed up with joy, positive energy. I was generating energy around me for the people that I was close to. I wasn't being a taker energetically. I wasn't being a gimme type of person. I was still showing up and saying, how can I serve and add value? And I think when you create value at every season and every stage, you're able to elevate that stage of where you're trying to get to. So every season, you can create a new meaningful mission. And once you accomplish it, you can say, do I still want to go on this path? Or is there a reflection time? As an athlete, we always have a postseason where you get to say, do I want to play this sport next year? Do I want to go back into training camp again? Do I want to go back into a full season? I remember my junior year of high school going into senior year. I played baseball my whole life. And after junior year, I broke my wrist. I was a pitcher. And I played with a broken wrist, just snapping it for a whole season, just like whipping my wrist. And I remember being like, I'm in so much pain. I just don't love this sport anymore. And I don't see my talents and my resources getting me to the next stage as a professional athlete in baseball. So I was asking myself, my vision is to be a pro athlete. I don't see it happening in baseball. I'm feeling a lot of pain in my wrist right now. Let me take my talents elsewhere, as LeBron James says, and use it for something else.
Yeah.
And so there was a postseason, there's an off season where I get to reflect and say, what do I really want? And now I put it into a different mission. So we always get that time. I was telling you before we started recording, tomorrow's my 10-year anniversary of the School of Greatness podcast. And it's a good time to reflect on anniversaries or end of years or end of seasons of something, or at the end of a book. You just finished a book. You might reflect and say, man, do I want to write another book? Or maybe I wait a few years because this took a lot of my energy and time and focus from other things that could serve my mission as well. And so it's just, you want to give yourself the space and time to reflect and say, am I still using is it still something I'm passionate about? Am I still stepping into my authentic power? And am I solving a problem that excites me? And I think if you can answer those three questions, then you can get clear on your one sentence meaningful mission. And you can always adjust it and be flexible with it over time. As you evolve, it will evolve.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. There's one thing that you said, going back to what you said a few minutes ago when you were talking about your meaningful mission in impacting 100 million people weekly, is you said, in building that, who do I need to become in order to do it? And what I love about that is because you have an entire chapter on just your identity alone. And I always it's almost every single podcast episode, I say the Alan Watts phrase, which is, you're under no obligation to be who you were 5 minutes ago. And it's the identity that we build for ourselves of who we think we are. And we build this entire life, and we look at what we could do based off of who we think we are. And I really want to dive into the identity side of it and finding their identity, because a lot of people think they know who they are, and then they start working on themselves and they realize there's a whole lot of things that are happening in the subconscious that they have no clue that they've been doing, and ways they react and how they're triggered. And so when you look at this, I would think a certain piece of building it is not like, oh, can I do this based off of who I am now? But can I build myself, like you said, into being the type of person who can eventually create this meaningful mission? Is that right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And, I wasn't capable 10 years ago of accomplishing that or being that.
Right.
There's been, and I set goals that are, I remember setting a goal when I was like 5 to be an All-American athlete because I watched, I watched Ohio State football with my dad, and he would talk about the All-American football players on the team. And I was like, what's that mean? He goes, they're the best in the country at their position. And I go, I want to be that one day.
Yeah.
And it took me 15 years, 17 years to accomplish the goal. And so I like to set goals that get me excited and put me into a future that I need to bring closer to me now of that way of being. Now, it doesn't mean I don't have seasonal goals of every sports season. Every year I have specific individual goals and want to win the championship or go to the playoffs or whatever it might be, or make the junior varsity and make the varsity. So there's different things I have towards a greater vision. And at the end of the day, it was always, I want to inspire people with my performance on the football field to dream bigger in their own lives. I always wanted to make plays that were awe-inspiring so that people could go home and be like, I want to go do something inspiring in my life as well. That's how I looked at it as an artist on the football field. And that's why I set that early on. One, because I was like, okay, in my first year of podcasting, I reached 750,000 downloads. You probably do that every day now, right, on your show. But it was a whole year of effort. And that was doing once a week, every week for a year. And it didn't even reach 1 million downloads. That was every day messaging people, say, check this out. I was all in, right? And I remember saying to myself after that, I was like, okay, we've almost reached 1 million downloads. Gosh, what would really excite me? Like 100 million downloads to even just get there seems like unbelievable. I don't know how long that'll take, but who would I need to become in order to make that happen? That's what excited me. What would I need to heal? What would I need to let go of? Who would I need to meet? What skills would I need to develop? What fears would I need to face? That's what really excited me over the last 10 years. And it has been a up and down healing emotional journey that has honestly, especially in the last couple of years, been so beautiful because it was a lot of stress. It was a lot of things I had to face that were uncomfortable. Had to have many uncomfortable conversations with myself, with other people, which takes courage to step into that. And it wasn't until the last couple of years where I finally felt like I had peace inside of me, where I was able to accept certain parts of me that I still was holding on to. I felt like I was healing a lot of parts, but there was still certain areas that I was resistant or not willing to face or didn't want to have those conversations around. And I think when you can lean into that and realize that the things around you aren't going to change until you start to change the things inside of you, man, that's when you can really create some good stuff though.
Yeah, man, it's funny because when was the last time you were in a football stadium? When and where? When was the last time you were in one?
Oh man, this is sad because I was just there Thanksgiving, right after Thanksgiving weekend. I went to the Ohio State Michigan game at Ohio Stadium, and it was sad because they lost really bad to Michigan. So that's a sore subject for me. But
well, here's the reason why I asked it, because so I was went to the Dallas Bucks game at the beginning of the year in Dallas. Went to the Dallas and Bucks game last week, which was terrible. So I was in Raymond James Stadium, and I was talking, and I was like, I wonder how many people are in Raymond James Stadium. And there's 70,000 people or 66,000, whatever it is, right? And have you ever sat, and the reason why I bring this up is because imagine 5-year-old Lewis, when you said you want to be an All-American, sitting back and realizing like what you could be now and what you have done. I sat back and I looked at it, and I was texting my wife at the time, and I was like, it's crazy that the podcast gets the podcast each week gets like 30 times more downloads than this entire thing. Like if you were to take 30 football stadiums and put them together, and that's basically what it would become. If we do, what was the math? I think it was 9 of them a day is what it was actually. So it's even more than that. But what's crazy when you think about it though, is you had to start at literally 1. I had to start at literally 1. And we both, it's funny that you messaged so many people to get them to listen to it, because I did the exact same thing where I was like, you got to listen. Let me put this on Facebook. I'm going to put this everywhere I can without seeming as spammy as possible. And I think a lot of people will look at like, oh, well, I want to have a podcast that's done 100 million downloads and impacting so many people and stuff. But as you said, there's a lot of conversation with yourself like, do I want to do this shit anymore? Like, is it worth it? Like, this is hard. But when you have that meaningful mission, it's like, no, this is so important to me. I've got to keep going. And that's one of the pieces I think is super important with what you're talking about.
Yeah, because a lot of people want to do it because their friends are doing it, or they're seeing someone they're inspired by doing it, and they're thinking, oh, I want what they have.
Right.
It's really cool that they have this audience now, or they're making money now, or they're a bestseller now. I want to be a bestseller. And a lot of that comes down to is I don't feel enough, which again goes to one of the 3 core fears that cause us to doubt ourselves. I don't feel enough for where I'm at, so I want something that someone else has because I feel like it'll make me feel like I'm enough. I'm at that level, or I'm good enough. And that's a slippery slope, because the more success you get, if you still don't feel good enough, it's going to be miserable. You've seen a lot of people, go down depression, the more successful they get, go through drugs and alcohol and suicides because they can't handle it and they still don't love and accept themselves. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
And they look for other ways to mask the pain. So if we can get to a place of loving and accepting ourselves, which is not easy, it took me a long time to do, and we create based on an energy of service and wanting to make a difference and be generous and giving and loving and joyful, as opposed to, I need to do this to prove people wrong, which was the energy that I was using for a long time. I needed to do this to prove that I'm good enough. I needed to do this so that I'll get someone to like me. That is just the wrong energy. It can get you the results you're looking for, but it won't give you the love and acceptance you need from yourself. And I'll give you a good example of this. There was a guy in my high school, probably today. I was in 8th grade. He was a senior. So I was in middle school, like watching the seniors, play or whatever, basketball. He probably is today the freakiest athlete I've ever seen, like of all levels, all sports, professional. Like he was a mutant, like an unbelievable freak of nature. 45-inch vert, 360 jam, just standing under the basket, no effort, could do anything athletically. And everyone was like, you are the greatest. But for whatever reason, when he went into the games, he played average. He got shy. He got insecure. He couldn't show up fully. And I was like, dude, give me a fraction of your talent and look what I will do. I will dominate, right? And I was like, give me a few inches of your hops, like anything. And here's the thing. It doesn't matter if everyone in all of your friends, your family, your community believes in you. If you don't believe in you, you're always going to be falling short of what you're capable of. But the beautiful thing is, that gives a lot of people hope, is it doesn't matter if your friends, your family, your communities, or other communities doubt you. If you learn to accept and love yourself, and you learn to believe in yourself, you can overcome any obstacle. And I think that's really inspiring and encouraging. But the other way doesn't work as well. If everyone's supporting you, but you don't learn the skill of accepting and loving yourself internally and create peace inside, no amount of talent will get you there. You've seen so many actors and singers and athletes blow their talent because they didn't master the inner game. And when you learn to master that, you can create from a place of peace and abundance far beyond what you ever thought possible.
Yeah. The interesting thing that I think should be said about too is, I don't know if you feel this way, but I feel this way. When you go on this healing journey, because that's, healing your past is chapter for you, is I don't think that this ever there's no destination of this, because I feel like once you get past one thing, you find another thing, you find another thing, you find another thing. And I feel like it's just the human journey. Like we're always going to have something, and it's never gonna be like, oh my gosh, this not feeling worthy is eventually going to go away. It just might go from like a 9 to a 1 is what we're trying to get it to, but it'll still pop up sometimes. Like I'm sure with you, I swear this is a real thing. I get an email from Chartable every single week on my podcast and the reviews. And I'm like, shit, I hope there's not a bad one in there. Like that's the first thing that pops in my head, versus like, dude, how many great reviews do we have between, 30, 40,000 between a couple different platforms. And I think like, I hope there's not a bad one. And immediately I have to go, oh, there it is. That's still popping up inside of me. It's that little bit of judgment. It's like, let's look at it. And then you look and it's like all positive reviews. And we keep thinking of that little tiny piece of us inside of us of like, I hope everybody loves me. I hope that and it just shows me, I'm like, okay, looks like I'm still on this journey. Looks like I've still got more things that I've got to work through. And I don't think we ever get to a place of like, hey, I'm perfect. I feel perfect. And this is the way it's going to be. It's just like, hey, this is life. And this is a human experience where we get to a point where it's just a little bit less loud than it used to be in the past.
Exactly. I think that's the key. And my emotional coach tells me that healing is not it's a journey. It's not a destination where it's like, okay, I'm aware and now I've healed, even though I might feel better in my nervous system and I've healed. It's still a journey of ongoing healing because life happens, triggers happen, reactions happen, death occurs, breakup happens, people steal, lie, cheat, all these different things. And we've got to learn to face them courageously and with some grace in a lot of ways. And so we just don't go back to an old way of being that held us back. I'm still going to feel moments of overwhelm, moments of stress, moments of frustration or triggers, but I don't let it hold on to me for days or weeks or months or years like I used to, where I would hold on to resentment or anger or frustration, because I'm clear on a meaningful mission. And I ask myself at the end of the day, is this feeling or this resentment or this frustration or this reaction serving the mission? If it's not, what do I get to do next? What conversation do I need to face that I don't want to have? What do I need to release? What do I need to let go of? Do I need to talk to someone about it? What do I need to do courageously so that I can let this go and move back into the energy of peace and flow and abundance to serve the meaningful mission? And when we are looking to serve our egos, that's when we hold on to resentment, fear, frustration, not enoughness, judgment, comparison. But when we serve our mission, that's when we can let go of those things and be generous, kind, and giving.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that, man. And I think that the important thing about it is always looking, like, at the end of every one of my podcasts, 1,400 podcasts, I've said, make it your mission to make somebody else's day better. And it's people like message me like, why do you say that? Like, what's the point of saying it? Where'd it come from? And I just remember before I started the podcast, I was like, if I'm going to reach 20 people and we can just go, hey, these 20 people, half of them, 10 of them are like, I'm going to figure out a way just to make someone else's day better, just in a small way. And then we could spread that. It's like, how can we, if a virus can spread, how can we spread a virus of like, hey, let me just try to do something for somebody else. Like, let me try to see if I can help somebody in some sort of way. And I think it's like, you want to go for 100 million. That's a big number. But everybody that's listening right now could literally go, well, let me try to do something for someone else today. And if there's one thing that I know that gets you out of feeling like crap or feeling unworthy or feeling not good enough, is when you go do something for somebody else and you see how they feel and then you start to feel better about it, there's nothing better. I mean, success, happiness, money, everything that you could go for, there's nothing better than when you see somebody else in their face and it's like, I just made that person's day better. Like there's that feeling is so important. And I love that when you have the meaningful mission, it is like the thing that pops in my head, it's like the North Star. It is your North Star. If this is where you're trying to go, you're going to make some incredible accomplishments. You're going to make a ton of money. You're going to have a lot of success and happiness. But the underlying theme that's going to go through the entire thing is like, how can I take this and help other people while I'm doing it as well? And that's the thing I think is the most exciting about the meaningful mission that you've created.
That's the key, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you a question. I'm going to ask you a question. First off, for anybody who wants to listen to your podcast, it is The School of Greatness. I said when I interviewed you the last time, your podcast is actually one of the reasons why I started my podcast. So imagine if Lewis had never made his, right? And then I would have never known what a podcast was 8 years ago because there wasn't many of them back in the day. So The School of Greatness. One of the things that you ask at the end of every single one of your podcasts, basically, you ask a few questions, but one of the things that I've loved since way, way, way back in the beginning was how do you define greatness? What does greatness mean to you? So you have the School of Greatness podcast, you have the School of Greatness book that came out, now you have the Greatness Mindset book as well. When you look at greatness, what does greatness mean to you?
For me, greatness is discovering and developing your unique gifts and talents, and using those to pursue your dreams. And in the pursuit of your dreams, making the maximum impact on the people around you. For me, that's greatness.
That's awesome. Lewis House, appreciate you for being here, man. I can't recommend your book enough. So let's, one more time, how can people find your book? How can they find you? Everything. I want them to go out and get this.
Yeah. The Greatness Mindset. You can go to Amazon or Barnes & Noble or anywhere, or you can just go to lewishowes.com/TGM for the Greatness Mindset to check it out. And let me know what you guys think. We'd love to hear your meaningful mission when you take the exercise as well in the book.
Lewis Howes. Appreciate you, man. Thanks for being here.
My man. Thanks, Rob.